Hi, this is Mike, Captain Tie-Dye from Just Rockin' Out. Today's video is going to provide information about the Good Stuff Tie-Dye Kit. I'm going to explain things like how much you can dye with it, the dye yield, give you some tips on things you have around the house that'll help you make your tie-dyes, and also what kinds of things to dye. Hopefully you'll find this information useful, and it'll help you when you're making your tie-dye creations. Okay, this is the Good Stuff Tie-Dye Kit, and let me show you what's in the kit here. First, there's 3 pages, and the first page basically has the title on it and tells you what's inside the kit. So you can get a good look out of there. And the next page is safety and tips. Just a few things that may help. Also, the last page are instructions for making and then finishing your tie-dye. Also, on the back of this page, there are QR codes that you can scan with your phone so you can get the instructions off of YouTube. Or you can go to youtube.com at justrockingout2013, and that'll bring up all the videos also. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you probably know that already, though. Okay, and in the kit, we have dye. There are 4 bottles. These are for mixing the dye in. Also, on each bottle it says fill to here, so you want to fill it to the end of the arrow. And there's a funnel that looks kind of strange. I actually make the funnels myself because when I first started using those funnels, I found out that the dye was clumping in it too much. So I actually cut the end off and I glued on a larger tube, which makes it really easy. Plus, it fits perfectly in the bottle and it doesn't wiggle around. So you shouldn't have any trouble with the funnel coming off. And the bottles seal really well. And they have this cap, and they each have a little red cap that goes on also. And we have vinyl gloves. I use vinyl gloves because people have told me they're sensitive to latex. So there's 3 pair of vinyl gloves in here. Also, there's the soda ash, which is sodium carbonate. This is used to help the dye bond to the shirt. The dye we use, which is fiber reactive dye here, the sodium carbonate raises the pH in the water and makes the dye more permanent. Also, there are a few rubber bands in here. And hopefully this is enough to get you started on your creative endeavors on making your tie-dye. Okay, your Good Stuff tie-dye kit comes with 4 colors of your choice. I just pulled 4 colors out here to show you what they look like. Now, this fills the 4 bottles, and people say, well, how much can I dye with it? That depends a lot on how much saturation you want on the shirt. That is to say, if you want it all colored or you want some white areas on it, or if you want to do different things and different size things. A bandana uses barely any dye, a hat uses barely any dye, a shirt uses a lot more. To give you an example, I have here 4 shirts. These are actually shirts that I made in the other video. These have very little white. This one has some white on it. They're all going to have a little bit, but they're pretty well saturated. And this here is 5 shirts that I made with the kit, and I still had about a third of the dye left. And these are, well, this is an adult small, and these other 4 are adult medium shirts. What you could actually make is probably about 7 or 8 adult medium shirts. So if you wanted to make a like a adult 2XL shirt, it probably would make about 5 of those. If you were to make a child medium-sized shirt, probably would make about 10 of those. A lot of it depends on how much dye you put on. If you don't put as much dye as I did on these, because I tend to use a lot of dye because I like a lot of color, what I would say is it would double that. So you might make as many as 15, 18 child medium shirts with the kit. Or you might only make 5 of them because you made them really solid and really dark colors. Really, it's how much dye you put on. But it will make, at least 6 or 7 adult medium shirts, and then you can kind of gauge if it's a smaller shirt or less material, you'll make more. If it's a larger shirt and more material, you'll make less. Hopefully that's a reasonable explanation, but what I recommend is don't worry about how much dye you're using. Make your creation exactly how you want it. If you want it really dense and a lot of color on it, use the dye. I always say don't be shy with the dye. Put it on the shirt. Okay, now I'd like to show you some things that are handy to have when you're making tie-dye. This should make it a lot easier. I have some plastic wrap here. Basically, you put the plastic wrap across the table, which I often do when I'm making it. Just stretch it out across the table. And if you wet the table a little bit, it'll stick better. That's always handy to have. Or I have here just a trash bag, like a kitchen trash bag. You can cut the sides of it, flatten it out, and tape it down to your table. This also will prevent the table from getting any dye on it. It's handy to have. And the Good Stuff tie-dye kit comes with a pair of vinyl gloves, which I have right here. But I do a lot of tie-dye, so I wear a pair of actual gloves. These are like, actually these are utility gloves from a hardware store. These are handy. They're easier to put on. These are fine for making a few, but if you're going to make a lot of it, you may want to get a heavier pair of gloves. Also, in the videos, I show that I'm using paper plates, which work well, except when the creation you're making is curing, even though it's in a plastic bag, it can soak through the plate. So you may want to put plastic underneath the plate, like put it on like the plastic bag that I just showed you. Or you can use plastic plates, and I have a few here of varying sizes. Like when I make bandanas, something that's really small, I generally use a small plate like this. This would be good for an adult t-shirt, and children's shirts usually are on a medium-sized plate. But again, these are things you probably have around the house that may help. Also, when you're mixing the dye, a pair of scissors is nice to cut the top off the dye bag. Although the dye bags are zip-tied or zip-locked, and you can open the zip-lock, I like to cut the top off because too often I've opened them and I jerk a little bit and then I drop a little bit of the dye. The dye is very concentrated. Also, the kit comes with rubber bands, but you don't have to use rubber bands to tie things with. You may want to use string, which I've used, and often I use zip ties. Any of these things are suitable for tying it if you decide you want to, separate an area. But also, if you use the zip ties, you're going to want something like this to cut the zip ties with. Because if you try using a knife, which I've had people do, it'll usually put a hole in the shirt. So getting one of these underneath the zip tie and cutting it with that is a much better way to do it. Also, we have washable markers. What that's for is if there's like a specific line you want on the shirt, you can draw it with a washable marker, and then you can bunch a shirt up and tie it in that area. This will be a good gauge. And these will wash out completely, and it's not going to affect your shirt at all. So handy to have too. Also, last, this is a 2-gallon bucket. This bucket is what I soak the shirts in, or bandanas or socks or whatever I'm dyeing. And something like this is just a paint stir. Not used paint stir, this was a clean one. And you use this to submerge and make sure your items are fully submerged when you dye them. These are all handy things to have, and it'll make making the tie-dye a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to show you what to dye now. This is a 100% cotton shirt. It's a adult medium shirt. I did this in one of the other videos. Actually, that's where I dyed this one. 100% cotton comes out really well. That's always what I highly recommend that people use as material. Doesn't have to be a shirt. It can be pants, it can be shorts, just about anything you could think of, as long as it's made of cotton. I also have here a 50% cotton, 50% polyester shirt. It's much lighter. The dye doesn't bond to the polyester, so you're going to get half as bright effectively. Some people actually like to have shirts that are kind of subdued and faded down, and that's fine. People have requested that I make them for them like that. But if you want to try that, you can use a 50-50 shirt. That's 50% cotton, 50% polyester. And you'll get a different look. But keep in mind, if you want it bright like this, you're going to want to use 100% cotton. Also, don't limit yourself to shirts. You could do things like hats, socks, and even thermal underwear. There's bandanas, anything made of cotton. I do want to mention, though, that if you get socks, often socks will come out like this, because it's really hard to find 100% cotton socks. If you do, they're terribly expensive usually. So what I would recommend you do is try doing a pair of socks, not a bunch of them, and see how they come out. If you find a brand that works well, then stick with that brand. I actually had to change brands because they changed how they were making them, and they started to come out like this. It's how they manufacture the sock. This one even has white inside of it, but that's because it has to have some material that's stretchable. The cotton doesn't stretch as well. So again, be careful on what you pick out. Try to find things that say 100% cotton. That's always what I recommend. Well, hopefully you found the information in this video useful, and good luck in your creative tie-dye endeavors.